Welcome to Exiles, a Gospel of Mark podcast. We're coming to you from Grace Church in Erie, Pennsylvania. We're taking what we learn about ancient truths and the person of Jesus into our everyday life. You can check out whoisgrace.com/Mark for the sermon and resources that we're using for our conversation. Thanks for joining us today for Season 3. This section of Mark, the Jesus Way, it's going to take us through July, and we are following Jesus through Galilee as he continues his teaching and healing work while training his disciples and facing down opposition. My name is Mike. I'm one of the pastors here at Grace. I have the, we'll call it the extreme honor of hosting today.
Is it though?
It's a little scary.
I'm kind of digging this like radio voice that just came out.
Is that what that
I'm
was?
here for it. Yeah. It was great.
The dulcet tones.
Go back and listen when this is like out and listen to your voice. It was awesome.
Better than Danielle's?
Okay, don't do that to me. We all have our own voice. We all have our own way.
So here's what I'm thinking for our icebreaker that we always do. So here's my question. What's a failure in your life that was absolutely soul-crushing in the moment, but now when you look back, it's kind of funny or ridiculous? Like in the moment, it wrecked you, but now you're like, LOL, that was...
You guys, this is the second week in a row where I have no memory, and I'm genuinely concerned that I'm suppressing. I have therapy tomorrow. I'm going to bring this up. But I've been thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know. So I think think there's more today just there.
So I honestly, like those failures that are soul crushing, that were my failures, at what point do you look back on them and
Never.
laugh?
Leave them there.
I think that's where
because I can think deep.
I feel like Mike has one because I don't have one.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go first?
Well,
Yes.
when you asked the question, my first thought was I can think of when someone else has failed me and I was crushed, and now I can look back and laugh.
Yeah.
That was where my mind went first,
Can
and
you
then
tell
I
that
that
story?
counts.
Can you
then
name that
I
person?
then I reread your question. I was like, oh, he means my own failure.
I mean, we can... All right, so I'll go first.
You go.
Since everyone's having trouble
We
coming
are.
up with their failures here. So I was 5th grade, Bottenfield Elementary School, Champaign, Illinois. I was one of the top 2 in my school in the spelling bee, and I got to go to districts.
Wow.
And in preparation for the district spelling bee, I'm telling you, I spent hours at night with my mom going through this like thick old booklet for the spelling all these different words. Actually, if my mom's listening, that's a cool core memory that I just randomly have from my childhood when I was thinking about this. But me and my mom, like drilling for hours and weeks, words and getting my spelling down for the district championship. I walk in and I've got my chest puffed out. I'm ready to rock this thing. You sit on stage. Everyone's on stage. And you get called up one by one to go to spell the word.
Very detailed.
It was
love that.
because this memory is very detailed.
Like drawn in.
No.
Okay.
That's a weird
It's
detail.
not.
So I get called up, and I'm coming up, I'm ready to do this, and they say, all right, the word is waiters. And I thought,
Like a waiter?
Well,
Like what you wear?
I thought,
When you're fishing?
waiters. Come on now, let's start it off with something hard. Don't give me a softball here. I said waiters, waiters, confidently, might I add. Waders with a D, like what you wear for swimming, not like serving your food. I was
blame the
wrong.
person who
You
gave
didn't
the word.
ask for the definition.
I didn't ask. I was crushed. This was round 1.
You're out.
I had to sit on that stage for the rest of the competition, and I remember spelling every single word correctly.
Afterwards.
And I was like, I could have won this stupid thing. It crushed me.
Yeah.
Now it's
So
kind of hilarious.
I want to talk to your mom because I want to know what her mama's heart was feeling after all that practice with you and knowing how much it meant to you and how prepared you were. I want to know what her heart, because I mentioned this to Sarah on her way in here. I had my first mom of a 9th grade Little League All-Star game last night, and him being on the pitching mound for the first time and just being, like that, whatever. So I'm like, oh, what is Mrs. Chrisman's version of the story? So I want to know.
All right, 2 observations.
Get her on the phone.
I don't think it's an LOL moment yet. As you talked about it.
So
It should be, but it's still...
still got a sting.
Just pastoral observation there. And then second observation. Okay, so this is a pet peeve of mine. When I moved to the States,
That needs to be a question next on
Okay.
this intro. is
I
pet
don't
peeves.
understand why. You guys can email in as well. Why do Americans pronounce their T's like these?
It just depends on the word.
What that doesn't.
Accents.
So I
Agree
live.
with you.
Our last church was on Pettit Street.
Pettit?
But it was spelled Pettit. That's Pettit Street.
That's
Right?
Pettit Street.
No, there's T's in there. It's not Pettit Street.
It's, what was it? P-E what?
Pettit.
You want to shorten the
And the amount
Pettit,
of people that
Pettit.
made fun of me when I moved over here was ridiculous. Because I would pronounce it wrong for such a long time. I'm like, it's not Pettit Street. It doesn't have
There's a lot of words that may not be
there's
T's
no
or
D's
D's.
in
but
there. Why we?
so funny.
It's fair.
That's a little bit about syllabification, but yeah, we like to not aspirate if we don't
Like
have
what?
to, right? Like a T is aspirated. You feel the air coming out. And a D is not aspirated. And I think as Americans, we are
D.
lazy and
T.
it's easier to
D.
say a
T.
word without aspiration.
Doesn't.
It's just the language teacher in me.
Yeah, well,
I
you guys
just
should fix that because
You're one of us now, bud.
Pettit Street.
That's great.
Pettit.
Anyway, that's where my brain went when you told that story. I still don't.
I
have one.
feel
Spelling.
right where I went was, oh, well, that person who said the word didn't say it right. Forgetting.
Well, they didn't. Well, no, they did. They did. You just
forgetting that you have the option
'Cause
to
it
be
would've been a
like
waiter.
definition, say it in a
So
sentence.
it turns out this icebreaker is actually just piling on my story. Fair?
Anyone else have a failure?
I don't fail, guys.
Oh, I have
Shoot,
many.
look
I just,
at you
I
on
just don't,
this end.
I just don't know how many soul crushing ones I can look back on and chuckle about.
Well, clearly
So,
Mike is not chuckling yet. So
yeah.
That's forced.
I don't.
So
that was fun, though. Thank you for that
Great.
opener.
Good. I'm glad.
I mean,
hope
it makes
everybody
you think, though,
enjoyed
we're
it.
like, how much do we just not remember on purpose?
I had to unearth that memory when I was thinking of my answer. So, all right. Well, so we are in Mark 9. Is it like that transition?
Rolled,
That was really
seamless,
smooth.
just roll it in.
Hashtag where's Danielle?
Where,
So Mark 9, wrapping up Mark 9:14 through 29, and the topic of the sermon was the really famous story, I believe, helped my unbelief, and the father with his son who had a demon, and Jesus exorcised him. And so, but what's really, I think, an easy part to miss that I tried to hit off at the beginning was just coming down from the transfiguration, like that amazing moment that Peter, John, and James had with Jesus, and they walked down into, a pile of crap. Is what they walk into, just like a
Chaos.
crazy situation. And the idea of that mountaintop experience is often followed up by something far more difficult. So I'll throw this out there. Is there a mountaintop experience you have had, or maybe someone else you know has had, that's been followed up by a really tough season or a tough situation? I know,
Yes.
I think, Stephen, you actually said something about this last week with the individual from your old church. So I don't know. Do you have experience, or have you witnessed kind of that juxtaposition of a mountaintop experience with God and then a tough situation afterwards?
Nicole and I got married. It'll be 10. This is the mountaintop.
Where's this going?
Mountaintop.
Please tell me that's the mountaintop.
We got married, so it'll be 10 years at the end of August.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, which is exciting.
10
But
is fun.
We had such a wonderful time, but I can tell you 6 to 8 months after that were the hardest season in the life of our church.
I thought you were going to say up your I was like,
It was at the end of the week. So we went on a mini moon because this is Erie
a long
and Western New
weekend.
York is the same. Western New York is the same. Like, you don't want to go anywhere in the summer because it's already beautiful. So like the weather was great. We're like, all right, we'll go away for a few days. And then in January, we'll actually go on a honeymoon. And we actually went and did a Scottish wedding. And then, then we went
oh,
on
so
our...
fun.
Yeah, super fun. But anyway, at the end, so we got married. We went away down to Skinny Atlas in the Finger Lakes for 2 days. And I think it was like a day after that, I got this disgruntled email. And it just felt like things blew up at the church. And it was by far one of the hardest 6 to 8 months afterwards. So talk about mountaintop. And then it was just like, oh my gosh, where did this all come from? But so that's where my brain goes.
That's good.
Yeah, that is good. I mean, I can think of so many. One of them that stands out is when we got married, we knew I had some issues and wasn't sure if I'd be able to get pregnant. And so I had surgery to correct that. And we got like the like my doctor was really confident that it had went well, and it was like, oh, okay, awesome. So we get pregnant, we're very excited, and then we, lost that. So it was like I was emotionally neutral because I knew going in, like, I might not be able to, do this, and then got real excited, mountain, and then woo, all the way back down, in a quick turnaround like that.
And this was after you, like soon after you and Nate got married?
Yeah, because I was old when we got married, so we didn't wait too long. But anyway, yeah. So those rapid emotional swings can be. I mean, experiences can be highs and lows, but I think like the emotional accompaniment to those is like, whew, yeah. As much as you can rationally know what's happening in the experience, the emotional swing can be what tanks you for a while.
And did you guys have any like indications? What word I'm looking for? Like anticipation that was going to come? Like having had whatever mountaintop you were on, followed by a tough. I mean, were you aware of that? Were you prepared in any way, or did it kind of come out of left field at you?
That's a great question. For lack of better words, it was. I mean, it's a church renewal situation. It was a smaller church, and we were experiencing a lot of growth. So there was always the propensity for opinions, and it's church life as well. I mean, church life is complicated, and so the particular issue we didn't anticipate. We didn't foresee coming. Certainly, right at the end of such a great moment in our life, milestone moment. We're married. This is
were you
wonderful.
still gone when you got this email?
No,
you were back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
But
good.
I mean,
hope he didn't check his email.
I know. And I'm like, oh, man, did that just put a huge damper? But I'm glad to hear you were back. Okay.
So it wasn't unanticipated that something like this could happen, but obviously the gravity
We
of the
weren't prepared
situation
for
and
the
the timing of
specifics,
it.
yes.
And I think that's I think that's important to know. Is I've walked with many, like I've experienced it myself, and I've walked with people who like, they put their faith in Jesus, they get baptized, they have some like really cool moment, and then all of a sudden, something hard hits, and they're surprised. It's like, well, did I do it right? Did I? I think you did. I think like I mentioned in my sermon, like Satan attacks what's working, and so it's almost like anticipate. Every time I preach. Emily and I prepare ourselves
That's what
like,
you've
all right,
said, yeah.
I'm probably going to have a rough week here. Like we're going to be picking at each other. And so it's a worthy thing, I think, to anticipate. Don't see the devil around every corner, but at the same time, maybe kind of.
Yeah.
Well, it's you're on those mountaintops. There's a confidence there, right? There's a God is so good.
Yeah.
There's we can be quick to praise and raise our hands and acknowledge all the ways in which God is kind and good and faithful and . And then, like, Satan undercuts that. What all it takes is a little bit of doubt. Like the down from the mountain could just be the seed of like,
Is that real?
was that? Yeah, is he really?
Yes.
So, yeah, and then you attach. I mean, that's me speaking from the rational side, but you attach emotion to that, and then you're just,
So for me as well, it feels like the deceitfulness of competency in those mountaintop moments, because you're succeeding. And so there's, we've talked about this in the podcast before. Yeah. God works in you, God works through you, but God also works with you. Right. So there's this partnership relationship that God is, uniquely wired. The Sarahs the way that they are, Mike the way that they are, Stephen, all of us the way that we are. And he partners with us, like Genesis 1, right? He walks with us in the redemption of this world. And so I think there's always the temptation for the deceitfulness of competency. So when you're in that mountaintop moment, it's like, God used me and I walked with God, and in creeps the pride a little bit. Almost like, oh yeah, he's using me, yay. And then it's like, oh, I am a big deal, and then whoop,
Turns out.
pride comes before the fall, and so anyway, that's where my brain goes with that as well. Like we have to, even in those mountaintop moments where it's good to acknowledge that God has worked in you, through you, with you, we have to also be careful not to pat ourselves on the back too many times. Otherwise,
on another side of it too, you're on this mountaintop, he's with you. Why do we lose sight and start feeling like he's not with us? When it goes the other way, like when we come down and there's chaos, and then
Quick
all of
to
a sudden,
forget.
come on. Again, we've been talking about that too, like remembering those moments. But we already know he's there. He's already promised us, and we continue to fall off and forget that he's still there, even when it's bad.
Yeah.
I guess I'd say don't be surprised
Yeah.
if you're listening and you have a really cool experience, and then all of a sudden,
Gross.
don't be surprised. So one of the famous words of this story, I believe, help my unbelief. The cry of the Father as he's going back and forth with Jesus before Jesus exorcises the demon and heals his son. It's a powerful phrase. So I guess when you hear those famous words, I believe, help my unbelief, like what comes to mind first?
It should be a posture all the time.
That's good.
Explain that.
All through your day. If something's like anything at all, good, bad, frustrating, confusing, your doubt, an argument, whatever, it should, if you just feel like you either don't know how to handle it or you're not handling it in a godly way, or you need advice or you need structure, whatever it is, you should be having that posture with him as he's the only one that can actually put you in the right spot or put you in the right direction or give you the knowledge or wisdom or bravery or courage or whatever it is that you need in that moment.
Yeah.
So for you, what's that barrier unless you have that posture all day, every day? At
No.
which point, tell me how.
I try, but beforehand, things are much, much better now, but I'll have to catch myself because normally it's me wanting to step in and take care of it all by myself. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm sufficient. I can handle it. Just like the disciples trying to take care of this demon. They were trying to do it with their own control, not his. That's usually my barrier. And then I realize I'm doing it and I'm like, my bad. And then again, it's like, okay, take that away from me. Fix it, please, type thing.
That's good.
So,
Yeah, and I think maybe the root there could be, like you're saying, control. It could be fear. It also could be pride.
Yeah.
Like not recognizing that you lack faith or
Yeah.
need to like ask for it. Like you're saying, Stephen, feeling like you have it all together. Yeah, and I hear in that dad's cry like his desperation. But there's to take that posture to say those words out loud, I feel like that's a big deal.
yes.
I want to say for men, but I'm going to go ahead and follow that up with for women too.
Yeah.
Those are two contrasting phrases uttered in the same breath.
Yeah.
And obviously things must have been pretty bad in that chaos at the bottom of the mountain for him to be so desperate.
So I think of he's passed away now, but an old man in the church that I grew up in, Ian Gunn was his name. And he must
I love a good Ian,
yeah.
right?
Ian
Have you
with a
anyone
gun.
met a bad Ian? I haven't. Every Ian I know is amazing.
I've met a bad Ian, yes. Yeah. Not this one in particular.
But he was
though.
great.
And I still remember, this is a talk about core memories. I still remember, back in the day when the pastor used to be at the front of the church, when the service finishes and he shakes everybody's hand and, So anyway, I'm behind Ian Gunn, and our church growing up had 2 aisles. We were always on the right hand. Sorry, this is too
Don't
detailed,
you
but
always sit in the same spot? Yeah.
We always sat in the same spot.
So true.
That's right.
But anyways, I was behind Ian Gunn, and he goes up, shakes the pastor's hand, and you have people in your life when you look at them, you're like, man, they're as close to God as you can think. And
Yep.
I remember him shaking the pastor's hand, and he just said, "I still have so much more to learn." And for whatever reason, like that,
so much.
that just it will always stick with me. I'm
How old
looking
do you
at
think
this-
he was?
Oh,
80s?
Yeah, he must have been like 85. Like
Things
this
he's
guy
seen.
is as close to God as anybody I've ever known in my life.
And how old
maybe
were you?
next to my papa. How old was I?
How old do you think you
Teenager?
I
were?
don't know, maybe 14. Yeah,
Okay.
13, 14. And just to hear those words, I'm like, what? And it's almost that same posture. Like, I believe, but help my unbelief.
Yeah.
You have
And what
so
a-
much more to learn.
And what another validation, too, of how much he probably had no idea that moment that he was having was affecting someone else in some way. And again, it's just such a reminder to us as throughout our day, people are watching and listening to you.
That's good. Yeah.
And that stuck with you your whole life. How many things have we done or said that has stuck with someone?
That's good.
It's the humility is what strikes me the most in that phrase, even in
Yeah.
like what you're just saying, Ian Gunn, like the humility that you have to have deep within you to be able to like genuinely utter a phrase like that. Like, I have more to learn. I believe, help my unbelief.
It's like a posture of humility, a posture of repentance, and also a posture of longing. It's like all wrapped up. Like,
yeah, that's great.
I know that I don't believe like I should believe, but I desire to believe, but I also need to repent of my unbelief, but I'm thankful for the belief that I have. It's like all of that, all in one, just like, God, I need you.
Yep. Please.
Yeah, I feel like if you read C.S. Lewis, not
that's
maybe
good.
the Narnia stuff,
a good
but his other stuff,
comparison.
I feel like he embodies what you're just saying right there. There's like a humility and a longing and it's all there. And in my brain flashed, what if Peter had said that on the mountain? Like in that place where he's like, this couldn't get any better. If he was like, whoa, I believe, like I'm riding high, but like help my unbelief, right? So how do I want to say this? Sorry. Sometimes in our joys and highest moments, we cannot imagine that anything's ever going to be either better or worse,
I know.
or get bad again.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
And so like in this moment of joy, ecstasy, this high, help my unbelief for whatever's next. Like my unbelief that anything could topple me off this mountain, or my unbelief that it could get better than this. Right. And then he comes down the mountain and hears the Father yell out of his I believe, but help my unbelief, where he's in a desperate situation.
How much did it resonate
and
with-
scared to believe that it could be better, scared to believe that there could be, right? Like, are you following what I'm saying?
No,
Yes.
100%.
It's helping my unbelief know that like there will both be better and there will be worse. There's going to be joy out of this and there's going to be suffering out of it. Like,
And literally,
in
like
either-
when Jesus, and if I'm getting ahead, I'm so sorry. But on top of that, it literally happens. Like when I was reading it, Jesus says, okay, and he goes to take care of it. And even in that moment, this poor kid like goes into this massive convulsion. So like you're literally, something really great is happening, but there's this really bad thing. Like I try to picture Jesus gives this command, and then this poor kid is just lashing around and probably going through a horrific episode. And they're all probably like, is this what's supposed to happen? That really, and then all of a sudden it was over. And but I'm sure the sounds and the
yeah.
was really wild.
It's fascinating what you said, Sarah, about even in maybe that mountaintop experience, being aware of it could be better. I mean, obviously it will be better one day on the other side of eternity, but it will also probably be worse than this. Help my unbelief. Anticipate. Does that take away from that mountaintop experience, having a thought like that?
No, because I think it goes back to what Stephen was talking about like that humility and longing posture. And it like, I don't know, it's realism. I mean, the Bible does not set us up for sunshine and roses, right? Nor does it set us up for hopelessness.
Yeah,
it is
that's
that now and
It's
not
a
yet,
juxtaposition, yeah.
your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, that we have to live in this gap. And so, I mean, I like want to hold everything with open hands. I don't want to, I mean, I've had dark days and I
Girl.
don't want to lay in those dark days without an I believe, help my unbelief, like I can have joy again. Nor do I want to see the most exciting thing happen with my kids and think, oh, nothing bad's ever going to happen, so that the day when something hard comes, I can't let that go and I'm against God for something that is hard. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No.
I'm sorry. I should have written notes down.
No.
I'm,
'cause there's
I think you should come in more without notes.
Yeah. It's easy to see,
Doing
and it's
great.
probably easy to imagine the humility in a valley moment, like the Father's having.
Yeah.
It's harder to imagine or to train ourselves to have a humble moment on the mountaintop. But if we can have that humble moment on the mountaintop, I think it prepares us for the eventual valley that's coming. So be able to have that humility and that longing and that all the things we're talking about
Yeah.
in both extremes, not just in one of them. Yeah, I think that's a helpful connection for me just making here.
When you said the word gratitude earlier, that's probably a key prayerful component posture of all of this on the mountain, in the valleys,
Yeah.
practicing gratitude.
So my brain is captivated by this idea that there may be unbelief. So if we were talking the mountain of transfiguration, like there's almost a component of unbelief that it can get any better than this. And so when you said that, that's where my brain is going. Like it's almost like
Build a tent.
yeah, yeah. It's like hang out, let's chill. Like, but it could get better than that. Even that, you know what I'm saying? So that's challenging me in this moment, just to think about those moments in life where it couldn't have got any better. But there's almost a there's a fragrance of unbelief there, where it's like, this is the best that God can do, but no, that's not also true. And
I'm always nervous when things are really good. I'm like, oh, geez. It's not going to be here. I'm not going to be here.
Well, I know
all the time. And I'm like, Sarah, focus on the moment.
Yeah.
You're going to learn something. Don't be dreading what's to come. Yes, things are probably something's going to fall. Like that's just inevitable. It's the way of life. But like, that's a big challenge for me is enjoying those mountaintop moments. Because I know what's ahead, and that's just called anxiety.
So you don't fully enjoy them.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's always this dread in the back of your mind, like,
That's fair.
like it's not going to last, and it's going to go away, and this is going to be taken from me, and that's a big struggle.
So I think the book of Philippians, Paul wrote, and like one of the themes of Philippians is joy. Like it's a very joyful letter to like a church that's like, woo, yeah, right?
Yeah.
But in that midst of that joy, he's like, hey, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything with prayer and petition and thanksgiving, present your requests to God.
And anxiousness
and then that peace comes. So it's like interesting to me that like in even that book that's like full of, he's not chastising them for a bunch of stuff. They're not in like the pits, but he's like, hey, even in this anxiety.
Because you know you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And when you go through enough in life like that, like it's so hard because time and time again, it just keeps happening to you and you get in survival mode and then you got to get yourself, it's just.
Oh, that's so good because he didn't make us for surviving. He made us for flourishing. Let's go.
On the mountain, it's important to have humble enjoyment of the experience God has given you. And in the valley, it's important to have humble hope towards what like it will be better.
Yeah.
And so
And he will get you through.
humility is the thread through all of it, but we need to have hope in the dark times. But we do need to honestly enjoy and take what God has given us.
Absolutely.
So that's.
Thank you for summarizing our rambling.
Spaghetti thoughts.
Way to be the host,
guys.
Mike. That was a fantastic
That's my
host
superpower. I
moment.
don't have my own thoughts. I just summarize well. So I talked a little bit in my sermon, and I found this D.L. Moody, the famous evangelist, just had a really cool analogy or picture of the types of faith that he experienced in his ministry, and I really resonated this when I read it. And he says he experienced three different types of faith: a struggling faith, a clinging faith, and a resting faith. And he uses the idea of water and a boat. So a resting faith would be like being in that boat, and comfortable and pulling others in. A clinging faith is kind of clinging to the side of the boat, whereas a struggling faith is you're just kind of in the deep water, just trying to keep your head afloat. Mm-hmm. So he articulates those being three different, versions or kind of faith that he experienced. What's your thoughts around that? What's your thoughts around that?
Mm-hmm. I don't think you stay in one forever. Mm-hmm. I think you're constantly in and out of all of them. That's my opinion.
Is that your experience?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the more and more he works with you and the more you may spend more time in one than the other. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that like once you get to, the resting faith, I don't think you stay there forever.
Mm-hmm. This isn't necessarily linear, you're saying, yeah.
Like it will, I believe you're going to move around.
Mm-hmm. I've experienced the moving around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I feel like I put myself in those situations because I get bored.
Oh, okay.
Explain that one.
Well, if we're just using a boat illustration.
A whole vibe.
Do I want to rest in the boat for a long time, or do I want to go jump? Do I want to go jump in the water? And then I go jump in the water, and I realize, oh no, help!
That's actually okay.
So
That's
I'm like
real.
struggling in that moment to get back to the boat, and I'm
Jokes
clinging
aside.
on the boat.
Woo.
Then I get back in the boat, but then I get bored again. So then I jump, and it's like my own nature puts me there from time to time.
Well, that's a fascinating
I'm bored in this resting boat. I'm
twist
getting
that
out.
I did not anticipate.
I want to go for a swim.
No, I'm like, I don't think.
Isn't it
rest
real?
is boring.
I don't either, but like I don't like sitting at the beach. Like that's like.
I gotta do something.
Nicole and I are totally different. Like she can spend 10 hours
Yep.
at the beach, and I'm
Lay
like,
me in a chair.
I'm like, get me on a hiking path or something. Like, get me. I need a goal. And there's no goal at the beach, so like,
The goal can be relaxation.
I could. No, that's not a goal. So I could sit in the boat for a while, but I probably want to jump in eventually
like
because
20
I'm
minutes.
going to get bored.
Yeah, just swim and come back.
Interesting.
Yeah. But Dio Moody probably didn't have that in mind at all.
not what
He's rolling over in his grave. I was struck by this just because. So I believe agree with you, Sarah. I think we go through seasons of all three. I think my hypothesis is we all have a proclivity towards one. Like there are people that I've met who are faithful Christians and love Jesus, and they struggle, and it is like the idea of just trying to keep your head above water is how I would describe their faith journey. I don't think that's not a lesser. There's no statement or declaration of value or worth in faith here. I think it's just the way God has wired us has a proclivity to one or the other. Of course, seasons being then we can kind of go through. So that analogy struck me.
Yeah, they'll stick with me.
Well, and I think it pushes back against if you don't have it all together, there's something that you're falling short
correct.
mentality,
100%.
which is a very American or Western.
Yep.
Include the
90s.
I like the look
the
she just
newer
gave.
citizens over here. No, but just a very Western post-Enlightenment. You know what I mean? Like we're going to achieve. There's a linear progression to progress. I mean, you see this all through like the history of church and missions and whatever. And so like we want to have arrived at our goal, and our goal is
We made it. We're going to stay
yeah,
here.
like I've checked all these boxes, and now I'm super hero Christian or whatever. And so people will live in the shame of the struggling faith and keep it quiet and hidden and
When we're all like that.
yeah. And I think if we would just, and this is where I feel like, forgive me if this is a tangent, I feel like it would behoove us to look at some of like the church fathers and mothers and writings through church history, because they are laced with all of this. I mean, dark nights of the soul, etc.
Some of our
be
church fathers
encouraged by that.
wrestle with depression and were just miserable people.
Because they're feeling all the angst of the
Yeah.
here while they're hoping
Yeah.
for the not yet. Yeah.
I think what's fascinating, like you talked about maybe the shame of the struggling faith. I looked at it a little bit different. Like sometimes I feel like it depends on the personality, but we can feel the shame of a resting faith. That there's this, sometimes we're like, oh, everything's great. My faith in God is awesome. Like I need some turbulence, like shouldn't I be struggling, as Christ struggled? That's where my brain goes. I think, it's just fascinating.
So we need shook up at both ends,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I've known some people with the resting faith, and I am not the resting faith, like not naturally, but I've known some people who've gone through some really hard stuff, and they have like genuinely looked me in the eye and goes, "No, it's gonna be okay. God's got this." And I'm thinking like, "What in the heck? Do you not see what I'm seeing, dude? Like you are not in a good place."
Yeah.
But and that's been so impressive to me. But that's fascinating. If you take that all the way to the extreme, at what point does that become a liability?
Yeah.
In some, like, you can take anything to the extreme, obviously, and find a place of unhealth. So, should I really just be trusting God? Am I doing the right thing? When that could just be the gift that God has wired you in whatever season you're in. That's fascinating.
Yeah. You said earlier as well, like faith is the undertone, right? It's the backbone here. So there's a sense in which, I don't know, again, I'm not maybe hitting on what D.L. Moody intended, but if faith is the backbone and the undertone here, like it's still faith.
Correct. 100%.
And so there is a health about all of these. There's an unhealth in all of them too. Nicole will say it, she said it. So we went through that church renewal season, over a decade of church renewal, and the church was healthy. It's beautiful, wonderful community. And she's like, you just get bored. It's just like, you don't do well with resting faith, It's like, okay, on to the next thing, almost a glutton for punishment. It's like, okay, what needs fixed now,
Nothing.
I need
Let it
fixed.
be.
That's the issue. But anyways, I just, I think it serves us well to realize that faith is the undertone here.
Yes.
And that there is a posture in which, unhealth can be present, but if it's faith, it's okay to struggle in faith.
Yep.
And it's okay to rest in faith. And so when we made the decision to come to Erie, it wasn't, honestly, if I can be completely candid, it wasn't fixing something that was broken organizationally. It was actually fixing something internally that was missing. And dare I say broken. Because I knew what my identity as a Christian leader looked like. I didn't necessarily know what my identity as a Christian looked like. And that was the first 2.5, 3 years of my journey here. that God moved me into this season of struggle. I mean, I don't journal a lot, but I've got moments where I'm in staff meetings and we're encouraged to write something to God. And all of my musings in those moments are negative and critical and cynical and all of those things, because that's what was inside me in that moment, because I didn't know what to do with, and I haven't shared the details of those things even with my wife. But she knows that obviously I wrote those. And I'm just starting to talk about them now, but I remember like nothing positive in me, because the child of God identity was actually not fully formed in me. The Christian leader identity, well, I knew how to be a pastor, but I didn't necessarily know how to be a child of God. So anyway, just, I resonate with that a little bit.
As you were walking, and we've talked about it, as you were walking through that season, and you're not claiming to have arrived, but so belief and so your faith in God through that. I mean, you'd been through tough seasons before, but this was tough in a different way, because this is very personal versus how was your faith during that season?
I think the phrase that I clung to, and it was almost because, one, I taught it, but two, it had been taught to me throughout. It was just go to God, even when you don't feel like it. And that was literally some of my writings, God, I don't even want to go to you, but I'm going to you right now. I hate everything about this, this idea of organizer, like all of these things, just writing these things down. Like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? All these things. But I'm like, it doesn't actually benefit me to just blurt it out publicly. The only thing I can do is write it and give it to you.
Yes.
And
Consciously give it to God.
Just okay, I'm going to trust that you're going to do something with this. And it, that season of cynicalness was maybe 4 to 6 months, where actually Pastor Scott looked at me. We were having lunch, and he was like, "You're not doing well, are you?"
He's really good at that.
He's really good at that.
So annoying.
Chewy.
I know,
Isn't it?
But he called it out.
Nothing gets past him. It's wild.
And that was great. It was really helpful, and that was the beginning of this turning point.
And you had a choice in that moment. Yeah. You could have lied and been like, "I'm fine," like deceive yourself in the moment. I'm totally great.
I think I was. I don't think it was possible to lie in that moment.
You were like,
because I was just so
everywhere,
all over the place,
to cover it up. You made a choice, and you're like, I'm going for it. I'm gonna have this conversation, and look where it took.
I didn't even say I'm gonna have it. He forced it out of you. But you could have still been like, no, I don't want to talk about it. But you did anyway, and that's not easy. Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to transition. Is that okay?
Go for
it. I'm so struck. I'm so struck by your comment of just go to God, and then you talking about journaling and just writing the things down. And had you not obeyed that simple thing to go to Him and write those things down, you probably wouldn't have been prepared to talk to Him.
Yeah.
Right? Because it would have been. It would have been stuck in the emotional angsty cynicism and wouldn't have had words or language yet, but you had been processing with God. And Mike, you were going to ask us about prayer, maybe.
No, look at that.
I'm struck by whether you're resting in the boat, clinging to the boat, or floundering. In the Psalms, you see all three of those things, and they are all go to God moments, every single one of them.
I wanted to bring this up, and it's going to tie off of Stephen. So I'm in a situation right now where it doesn't matter what it is, but there's a situation going on in my life, and Jesus and I are walking through it. And the other day, I basically, in a sense, hit my knees, and I'm over it. I'm over this situation. I'm over, I've had it. So I went to him in desperation. I was like, please, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to read? What do I need to be focusing on to help with this whole, and he told me, you need to pick this book back up. I have this book at home. I haven't touched it. And he was like, you need to go back on this book. And I'm like, okay. So obeying him and doing what he told me to do, I went to this book, and I've been reading the book over the last couple of days. And did he not tie in your message to the book and the situation that I'm in? And he is guiding me through. And so yesterday, I had just finished reading the manuscript. I had gone through everything, and the verse that we're talking about today was in the book. And so I'm reading and I'm praying and I'm talking, and I just read your manuscript, and I moved right into the next book, and I'm having this time with God, and we're talking and we're reading through the book, and I hit the point of the book and how it all tied in, and I set the book down, and I was like, I see. Okay. I see you. All right. I know what's going on. But it's one of those moments where it's validation. Just listen to him. Mm-hmm. Do what he tells you to do, and he's going to line everything up, and he's going to keep giving you these moments of validation. And those moments with him are just so cool. Mm-hmm. 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 But I wanted to tell that, like, how that it's all interceding.
That's like God knows what he's doing or something. It's wild. I wish I remembered that more often.
It's really cool. I love, like, cliche is cliche for a reason, right? Because it's like, we'll go to him, and you're like, oh, it's so cliche, you know? But you did obey in that moment. I think the other thing I want to say as well is sometimes it doesn't even feel like we're obeying. Obeying is sometimes not feeling like it's obeying. Sometimes it just feels like it's shot in the dark.
Oh,
because I would not have said in my dark moments that I was obeying. I was just like reaching out in the dark and hoping that I find his hand.
the right, yeah.
But I mean, in hindsight, it is obeying, right? Because cliche is cliche for a reason. So you've had this built into you, and you're like, this is the only thing I know what to do. So I'm just going to do it. It doesn't feel like he's going to come through, but I just hope that he is going to come through. So
he meets you there.
So I think both postures are equally important.
And that's what we see. We see what it looks like to go to God, go to Jesus, and what it looks like not to in this story.
Yeah.
Faith and failure. So the disciples, and again, the crazy thing is they were trying to exorcise this demon from this kid. They had literally done this before successfully, and now they can't do it. And like, so discipleship failure, but this father, like the disciples, and kind of at the end there, and that's the funky phrase, this thing can only be cast out by prayer. Prayer is dependence here. Mm-hmm. So the disciples weren't going to God, weren't depending on him, therefore they couldn't they couldn't exorcise this demon. This father who's sitting here at this crossroads of faith and failure chooses to just, in the most arcane way, just go to, I believe, help my unbelief, go to Jesus, and Jesus comes through. And that's not promising any sort of outcome for anybody, but it's the outcome can be wildly different.
He could have been like, forget it, you guys don't know what you're doing. Like, because they were a representation of him, because he wasn't standing there. He was coming down a mountain. And isn't that just a reflection of how humanity is right now anyway? You have all these Christians who act a certain way, and they're supposed to be representing Jesus to people who do not know Jesus. And those people make a choice to go to Jesus anyway.
Praise God.
Praise God. Because,
Yeah. Because the disciple, I said Peter should have prayed that on the mountain. I believe, help my unbelief. Those disciples, I believe, 100%. Help my unbelief. I can't think of, can you think of any situation in life where that is not an appropriate posture, correct, prayer stance for us to take? I think about as we move forward with the future of Grace Church, I believe and please. I was praying it this morning. I was like, help my unbelief. Yeah. For myself, for us as a collective, right? Because this isn't just a personal thing, it's a we thing. But
it's quite possibly one of my favorite verses in all of Scripture. Absolutely. Just because it's real. It's things that we would contrast, humanly speaking, but it's, I believe, help my unbelief.
It's an everyday issue, every day, yeah.
So that gets us to about our time here. So a couple of my next steps from the sermon were for those to be encouraged or to redirect your faith. So those who find themselves in a tough season, maybe of doubt, maybe of trying to find their faith, just be encouraged. Because even just clinging to faith in a tough season, that is a faithful and God-honoring act. For others, maybe like the disciples, if you put your faith in yourself, or others, it's time to redirect your faith and go to God in that. So there's a couple of next steps. The discipleship questions that we had, what's holding me back from looking more like Jesus, and what is my next small step of obedience today? So don't forget, you can go to whoisgrace.com/Mark for more resources, and you can also submit a question or let us know what you feel about our podcast. We welcome those. Those are always, whether it's questions or just, comment on
question you want us to answer,
or just the intricacies of the Scottish language, or whatever you want. Let us know. We love to kind of have that. Thanks for joining us today. As we close, I'll leave you guys with a nugget of wisdom. If you didn't know, one oodle plus another oodle equals toodles.
Oh, wow. And we're out.